Okay, so Apple just dropped some big news, and it's forcing some pretty huge questions about the future of their design. We're talking about a device that's really pushing the limits, but it also puts Apple at a major crossroads. All right, let's get right into it.
Well, it looks like the rumors were spot on. Apple has officially pulled back the curtain on its newest smartphone, the iPhone Air. And listen, this is more than just another yearly update. This feels different. It's pointing to a whole new direction for the iPhone, and it's all about one single incredibly ambitious idea.
And what is that idea? Thinness. I mean, we're talking really thin. Apple is making a huge deal out of this, calling the iPhone Air its thinnest ever. And honestly, that one feature, that single word, is the entire story here. But as you can imagine, it also cracks open this whole Pandora's box of problems, both in engineering and, well, in business. Okay, so let's break this down. What exactly makes this phone so special? What do we actually know about this new super slim device?
All right, so Apple's still being a little cagey with the full spec sheet, but here's what we've got. Obviously, there's that ultra thin design everyone's talking about. We also know it's got a pretty big 6.5-inch screen. But the real story, the fascinating part, isn't just how thin it is, but how in the world they actually managed to pull it off.
You see, getting a phone this thin, it's not just about making the parts a little smaller. Apple had to go back to the drawing board and completely rethink how a phone is even built. We're talking a massive re-engineering project. And of course, when you do something that extreme, it brings up a huge, glaring question. And you know exactly what that question is, right? It's the first thing that pops into your head. Okay, it's super thin, but does that mean it's super fragile? I mean, you've got this giant screen on a razor-thin body. What happens the first time it slips out of your hand? It's a totally fair question, and honestly, the answer could be the difference between a huge hit and a massive flop.
Well, you gotta give it to Apple. They knew this was coming. They weren't caught off guard. They came to the announcement with answers. It seems they didn't just focus on making it thin, they spent just as much time trying to make it tough. So let's take a look at how they say they solved this whole durability puzzle.
Okay, so Apple's got this three-pronged attack on the fragility problem. First up, it all begins with the brain of the phone, the chip. The new A19 Pro is so tiny and efficient, it lets them shrink everything else around it. Step 2, they totally rethought the layout inside. They're stacking components way more tightly, especially up near the top of the phone. And finally, to tackle that big screen worry, they've got something new called the ceramic shield. They're claiming it's a whopping 3 times more scratch resistant. We'll see. So, on paper, it looks like they've figured out the engineering side of things. Pretty impressive. But that leads us to the other side of the coin. And this one might be even trickier. We're talking about money. All this new tech, all this research and development, it costs a fortune. And that puts Apple in a really tough spot.
And this is where the real drama is. Because there's one crucial piece of information we're all still waiting for: the price. Seriously, that one number could be the most important detail of this whole announcement. And it's not like they can just pick a number out of thin air.
They're making this call in a really complicated economic climate. I mean, the cost to build anything is going up. The little components inside are getting pricier. You've got tariffs making parts more expensive. Plus, there's all this political pressure to move manufacturing around, and right now, most of it is happening in China and India. You add all that up, and what do you get? A much more expensive phone to actually build. And here's the thing, Apple isn't in this boat alone. Every company is dealing with this stuff. But to really get a handle on the corner Apple's painted itself into, you have to look at what its biggest competitors have been up to. Okay, just look at this year alone. Samsung dropped a new phone, Google dropped a new phone. Both of them were dealing with these exact same rising costs. And what do? In both cases, they decided to eat the cost themselves and not make their customers pay more, which leaves this big, blinking question mark hovering right over Apple's head, doesn't it? So the takeaway here is pretty simple, right? The competition has already set the precedent. They've told the market, hey, costs are up, but we'll handle it. That puts a ton of pressure on Apple to do the same thing, no matter how much they spent on developing this fancy new thin phone. So at the end of the day, it really boils down to two choices for Apple. And honestly, either way they go, it's going to be a huge story. Path number one, they raise the price. They go against the grain and make customers pay for all this new tech. Or path number two, they absorb the costs. They swallow it, as they say, protecting us from the price hike, but maybe taking a hit to those legendary profit margins they're famous for. And that right there, that is the billion-dollar question hanging over this whole iPhone Air launch. You know, they're making a big gamble on thinness. But the real bet, the real gamble, is on us, on what you and I are willing to pay. So, what's it going to be? Will Apple eat the cost, or are we, the customers, about to pay the price for progress? I guess we're all going to find out soon enough.